Welcome to another deep dive. Today, you and I are exploring, a stack of sources that I think will fundamentally change how we understand our own daily stress.
Oh, absolutely,
Like,
man.
especially those moments when you just completely lose your cool over nothing. We're pulling from clinical psychology frameworks, specifically Dr. Dan Siegel's foundational research, along with deep dives into modern trauma therapy modalities.
Right.
And we're also looking at some operational data from a specific practice in Georgia called Coping and Healing Counseling, or CHC.
Yeah, the real-world application of all this theory.
Exactly. So our mission here is to unpack this game-changing biological concept called the window of tolerance. And, examine how organizations like CHC are actively breaking down the real-world barriers to getting this specific kind of care.
It's so needed too.
It really is. But to get us into this, I want you to picture this universally acknowledged, maybe slightly embarrassing scenario.
Oh boy.
Okay, so it's Tuesday morning. You go to make your coffee, you spill a little milk on the counter.
Right. Happens all the time.
Yeah, and you just grab a paper towel, you wipe it up, you go about your day, you don't even think twice about it.
It barely registers on your radar. I mean, you're just moving through the morning with total ease.
Right. But now, fast forward to Friday evening. It's been a long, demanding week. You go to pour a glass of water, a few drops splash onto the floor, and suddenly it feels like the end of the world.
The absolute end of the world.
You're staring at this tiny puddle of water, and you feel this overwhelming, seemingly irrational urge to either burst into tears, throw the glass against the wall, or just lay down on the kitchen tile and literally never get up again.
Just surrender to the floor.
Yeah, exactly. And for the longest time, I assumed that when that Friday meltdown happens, it means we're failing.
Oh, totally. We judge ourselves so harshly.
We do. We ask ourselves, why am I being so dramatic right now? Or so fragile? But the clinical literature we're examining today, it completely shifts that perspective.
It's a total paradigm shift.
Right. We're going to look at the exact biological reason behind that Friday meltdown. And, most importantly, why it is absolutely not a personal failure on your part. Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, so the clinical framework that explains this whole phenomenon, it was actually introduced by Dr. Dan Siegel back in 1999.
Okay.
And it centers on what he termed the window of tolerance.
The window of tolerance.
Right. So in neurobiological terms, this window represents your autonomic state range.
Okay, wait. Autonomic state range.
Yeah, which sounds super technical, I know. But basically, it's just the optimal balance zone of your nervous system.
Got it.
When you're operating inside this window, your prefrontal cortex, which is, the logical thinking part of your brain, it remains fully online.
Right, the adult in the room.
Exactly. The adult is at the wheel.
Right.
So you can effectively process complex information, you can feel strong emotions without being hijacked by them, and you can meaningfully engage with your environment.
So, to put that in everyday terms, being in the window basically means you're able to actually respond to life rather than just blindly reacting to it.
Yes, perfectly said.
It's that Tuesday morning feeling. You spill the milk, your brain assesses the situation logically, and you respond by just wiping it up.
Because your autonomic nervous system, which is the part managing background, functions like your heart rate and your breathing. It's humming along smoothly.
It doesn't sense a threat.
Right. It doesn't sense a threat, so it lets the logical brain stay in the driver's seat.
Okay, so if that's the baseline, what changes by Friday?
Well, this autonomic state range is highly variable. The size of this window dictates exactly how much stress your system can absorb before it triggers a survival response.
Oh, I see.
But here is the critical insight from the sources. This window is not some fixed architectural feature of your brain. It's highly elastic. And under the right pressures, it shrinks.
It actually gets smaller.
Yes. The clinical literature literally refers to this as the squeeze.
The squeeze. I picture this autonomic state range kind of like the operating processing power of a smartphone.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Like when your phone is cool and functioning normally, you can have a dozen apps open. You can be streaming a podcast, navigating with your GPS, checking emails, and the phone handles it all seamlessly.
Yeah, no lag at all.
Exactly. That's your brain inside a wide window of tolerance. But, as we all know, that capacity can drop. And the text specifically highlights chronic stress, physical exhaustion, and unresolved emotions as the primary drivers of the squeeze.
Yes.
It's the equivalent of having these heavy, corrupted background apps silently running on that smartphone, slowly eating up all your available RAM.
And it's the cumulative nature of those stressors that catches people off guard.
Because we usually look for, like, one massive
Okay.
thing, right?
We often look for one massive traumatic event to explain why we're so dysregulated. But for most people, the window narrows millimeter by millimeter.
Wow.
It's the low-grade anxiety about a project at work, compounded by, say, 3 nights of terrible sleep.
Ugh, the worst.
Layered on top of, grief you haven't fully processed,
Right.
those factors act like a vice grip on your nervous system.
So it's just squeezing the window tighter and tighter.
Exactly. So by the time you get to Friday evening, a window that was wide open on Tuesday has been squeezed so tight that you have literally zero buffer left.
So the few drops of spilled water, they don't land safely inside the window anymore.
No, they hit the boundary and completely shatter it.
Wow. Okay, so I have to ask a crucial question here. If the window gets narrower and narrower as stress piles up throughout the week, what exactly happens when we get pushed completely out of it?
Well, the sources describe 2 distinct biological directions we can fall.
Okay.
So when you're pushed out of your window of tolerance, your prefrontal cortex essentially goes offline.
Logical brain shuts down.
Yes. And the amygdala, which is your brain's threat detector, takes over. You fall either above the window into what's called hyperarousal or below the window into hyperarousal.
Hyper and hypo.
Right. So going above the window into hyperarousal means your sympathetic nervous system goes into absolute overdrive.
It thinks you're in danger.
It perceives a life-threatening danger,
Yeah.
even if the trigger is literally just a puddle of water on the floor.
That is wild.
Your body triggers the classic fight-or-flight response.
Mhm.
Cortisol and adrenaline flood your bloodstream, your heart rate spikes, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid.
The sources describe the internal experience of hyperarousal as having racing thoughts or a feeling of panic or just this intense urge to snap at people.
Exactly. Patients frequently describe this state simply as being too much.
Too much energy.
Right. You have all this frantic energy that has nowhere productive to go. If someone asks you a completely benign question while you're in this state, your system is screaming that you are under attack.
So you might just bite their head off defensively.
Exactly. But the alternative is dropping below the window into hyperarousal.
Okay, so what does that look like?
If hyperarousal is slamming the gas pedal to the floor, hyperarousal is pulling the emergency brake and cutting the engine entirely.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, when the nervous system calculates that fighting or fleeing is impossible, which often happens because the stress is chronic and inescapable, it defaults to the freeze response, which is governed by the dorsal vagal complex.
Okay, wait. I need to challenge this a bit just to make sure we're getting the biology right.
Sure.
Because the sources describe hyperarousal as feeling numb, having brain fog, or literally being frozen on the couch, unable to make a decision or answer an email.
Right.
To a lot of people, that just looks like standard procrastination or, honestly, laziness. How does the body justify freezing on the couch as a biological survival tactic?
What's fascinating here is that it's actually a profound evolutionary mechanism.
Real?
Yeah. To the outside observer, someone in hyperarousal might look relaxed or bored or lazy, but internally, their nervous system is in a state of extreme distress.
It's masking it.
Exactly. It's a biological preservation tactic known as death feigning in the animal kingdom.
Like playing possum.
Exactly like playing possum. When a threat is completely overwhelming, the body literally shuts down non-essential functions to conserve energy, hoping the threat will just pass.
That is incredible.
Your heart rate actually drops, your pain receptors are dampened, and your cognitive processing slows to a crawl. The body is essentially playing dead to survive the psychological environment.
Which brings us to the most massive paradigm shift in this entire framework. Because clinical psychology is telling us we have to stop moralizing these behaviors.
Oh, we have to stop immediately.
Right. Neither of these states, snapping at your partner or freezing on the couch, is a character flaw.
No, they are purely physiological signals, alarms going off in the nervous system.
Like your phone screen flashing that temperature warning and locking you out.
Right.
You wouldn't yell at your phone and call it lazy for overheating.
No, you'd put it down.
You'd recognize that the system was overloaded and needed intervention.
And shifting away from that moral judgment is incredibly liberating for patients. I mean, when someone says they feel too much or too shut down, they are accurately reporting a shift in their autonomic nervous system.
It's data?
It's just data. Recognizing dysregulation as a biological event rather than a moral failing completely changes the internal narrative. It shifts the question from what is fundamentally wrong with me to what is happening in my nervous system right now and how do I bring it back online?
Wow. Okay, so what does this all mean for someone going to therapy? Because when people seek out therapy, I think the underlying expectation is often that they need to learn how to just never get upset again.
Oh, that's a huge misconception.
Right. They want to sort of amputate the parts of themselves that feel uncomfortable, hoping to become some sort of stoic robot who is completely unbothered by Friday night water spills.
Right, but the literature is very clear. The goal of therapy is not emotional suppression.
So what is the goal?
The core clinical goal is to widen the window of tolerance.
Widen the window.
Yes, you're not trying to stop life from being messy or stressful or chaotic because you honestly cannot control the external environment.
You drive yourself crazy trying.
Exactly. Instead, you're systematically building a broader internal capacity. You're expanding that optimal zone so that more of life's complex, messy realities can actually fit inside it safely.
Without triggering that amygdala hijack into hyperarousal.
Precisely.
Okay, and the sources detail some incredibly specific, specialized, trauma-focused modalities that clinicians use to actually achieve this widening.
They do.
We're looking at things like EMDR, somatic experiencing, internal family systems, and sensorimotor psychotherapy, but I don't want to just list these off. I want to know the how.
Sure.
Like, how do these specific types of therapy physically change the boundaries of our nervous system's capacity? Take EMDR, for example. From the outside, it sometimes just involves watching a therapist's fingers move back and forth. How does that widen the window?
Well, the common thread among all these specialized modalities is that they bypass the purely logical part of the brain and speak directly to the nervous system.
Okay.
Traditional talk therapy is great for insight, but you cannot always logic your way out of a biological freeze response.
Right, because the prefrontal cortex is already offline.
Exactly. So EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing it, uses bilateral stimulation.
Like the eye movements or tapping.
Right. And this creates what's called a dual attention stimulus. It essentially keeps your prefrontal cortex anchored in the present safe moment while you simultaneously access a traumatic memory.
Oh, wow. So you're straddling both.
Yes. And this allows the brain to reprocess the memory without triggering the fight or flight alarm. You are fundamentally uncoupling the memory from the physiological panic.
Which frees up massive amounts of capacity in your nervous system.
Massive amounts.
So, to go back to the smartphone analogy, if chronic stress and trauma are the 50 corrupted background apps draining your battery, EMDR isn't just putting the phone in the fridge to cool it down temporarily.
Oh, no.
It's actually going into the developer settings and permanently uninstalling those corrupted apps so you have your RAM back for daily life.
That captures the mechanics perfectly.
Yeah.
And somatic experiencing and sensorimotor psychotherapy do something similar, but through the body.
How so?
Well, trauma often interrupts a biological defense response.
Oh.
Imagine being in a minor car accident where you couldn't put your hands up to brace yourself in time.
Okay.
The physical energy of that incomplete defensive movement can actually stay trapped in the nervous system.
It just sits there.
Yeah, creating a chronic state of low-level hyperarousal. So somatic therapies guide patients to track physical sensations and slowly discharge that trapped survival energy.
And then there is IFS, internal family systems,
Right.
which approaches the mind as a collection of different parts. It helps you identify the highly protective parts of your personality, the ones that trigger hyperarousal to keep you safe, and helps them realize the danger has passed so they don't have to hijack the system anymore.
It makes total sense.
It really does. If you process the unresolved emotion and discharge the trapped physical stress, you naturally remove the squeeze. The window expands.
Right. But, understanding the underlying biology of these modalities is empowering, but the literature quickly transitions from this theoretical framework to a pretty harsh reality.
Yeah, access.
Exactly. Accessing professionals who are actually certified in EMDR or somatic tracking or IFS, it's a monumental hurdle for the average person.
Knowing about these complex modalities is great, but getting the care is a whole different story.
These are highly specialized skills, and finding a local clinician who has openings, takes your insurance, and matches your specific needs is incredibly difficult.
And there's a massive paradox here that we have to talk about. The logistics of traditional therapy can actually be deeply traumatizing to a dysregulated nervous system.
Oh, completely.
Think about it. Your window is already squeezed paper thin by Thursday afternoon. Now you have to leave work early, get in your car, fight your way through bumper-to-bumper traffic, hunt for a parking spot, and sit under fluorescent lights in a waiting room full of strangers.
Sounds awful.
Right. By the time you finally sit down on the therapist's couch, the commute alone has pushed you completely into hyperarousal. You spend half the session just trying to get your heart rate down.
The logistical stress of accessing care often exacerbates the exact dysregulation the patient is seeking to treat.
Yes.
You're fighting the environment before you can even begin the clinical work.
Which is why the operational data we have on coping and healing counseling, or CHC, in Georgia is so relevant to this conversation.
Right.
They've built their entire practice model to completely bypass that paradox. They operate a 100% telehealth, IPA-compliant model that serves all 159 counties in the state of Georgia.
And a 100% telehealth model is not merely a matter of modern convenience. It's a clinical tool for nervous system regulation.
Because it keeps them inside their window of tolerance.
Exactly. By removing the commute, the waiting room, and the disruption to a patient's schedule, you are actively preserving their window.
That makes so much sense.
They can engage in deep trauma processing from the physical safety of their own living room, maybe with their pet nearby, in an environment they completely control.
That foundational sense of physical safety is the absolute prerequisite for the nervous system to let the prefrontal cortex do the heavy lifting of therapy.
Couldn't agree more.
And the CHC team itself, it isn't just a generic counseling center. Looking at their clinical team, they have a diverse, culturally competent group of over 15 licensed therapists.
Right. Licensed clinical social workers, professional counselors, marriage and family therapists.
Which, again, speaks to safety. If a patient feels fundamentally misunderstood by their provider regarding their cultural background, that is just another stressor that narrows the window.
Oh, 100%.
And they cover a wide spectrum of needs. Individual, couples, family, and teen therapy starting at age 13, plus life coaching.
And if we examine their clinical specialties, things like anxiety, depression, trauma, PTSD, profound grief, relationship issues, stress, it reads like a comprehensive master list of the precise factors that cause the squeeze.
Right. If you're carrying the weight of unresolved grief, your window is going to shrink.
If you're navigating PTSD, your window is chronically narrowed by intrusive memories.
Exactly. And the team at CHC is explicitly equipped with the modalities necessary to target those root causes and expand the patient's capacity.
We also have to address the elephant in the room when it comes to mental health care access, which is the financial piece.
Oh, the financial anxiety is massive. It's arguably one of the fastest, most aggressive ways to push a human being into hyperarousal.
Without a doubt. You go to a specialist to heal your trauma, and then the out-of-network bill arrives and gives you a literal panic attack.
The financial stress just acts as a vice grip on your capacity, totally defeating the purpose of the treatment.
It creates a cyclical trap of dysregulation. But CHC has actively dismantled that barrier through their billing infrastructure, which is incredible.
Yeah, they accept major commercial insurances, right?
You do. Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, and Humana. And depending on the specific plan, they manage to keep patient sessions between $0 and $40.
Wow. And what stands out the most in their operational footprint is that they accept Georgia Medicaid with a $0 copay.
That is a massive deal.
It really is. They're taking these high-level, trauma-informed clinical concepts, the kind of specialized care that is usually gated behind expensive, out-of-pocket boutique practices, and they are democratizing it.
Yes. They're removing the immediate financial panic, allowing individuals across all socioeconomic backgrounds in Georgia to actually access the tools needed to widen their window of tolerance.
It's a remarkable synthesis of advanced biological theory and practical public health application.
By addressing both the clinical need and the logistical and financial barriers, they are providing a pathway out of chronic dysregulation for an entire state.
And naturally, for those in Georgia looking to access this infrastructure, their digital front door is cheaththerapy.com. Or they can be reached via email at support@cheaththerapy.com and by phone at 404-832-0102.
It's incredible to see the science applied at that scale.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to bring this all the way back full circle to your kitchen on a Friday night.
The spilled water.
The spilled water. The next time you drop a glass of water or misplace your keys or get a mildly annoying email and you feel your heart rate spike and the world start to end, I want you to remember the biology we unpacked today.
It's not a moral failing.
Exactly. Your emotional dysregulation is not a personal failure. You are not weak, you are not being overly dramatic, and you are absolutely not broken.
You're simply experiencing a physiological state.
Your nervous system has been pushed outside its optimal operating temperature, and your window of tolerance has been squeezed tight by the cumulative weight of the week.
The symptoms of feeling too much in hyperarousal or too shut down in hyperarousal are just your biology's profound attempt to protect you from an environment it perceives as overwhelming.
And the takeaway here is that your window is highly elastic. With the right therapeutic modalities and through accessible, culturally competent platforms like CHC, you can do the neurological work to expand that boundary.
You can build a bigger, more resilient container for your life.
I love that. A bigger container for your life.
Yeah.
And we want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today, something that builds directly on the mechanics of the squeeze that we explored.
Right, because we know that lack of sleep and busy schedules narrow your capacity.
We do, but the literature specifically highlighted unresolved emotion as one of the heaviest, most silent burdens that shrinks the window.
It really is.
So ask yourself, what single unresolved emotion are you carrying around right now that might be silently shrinking your capacity? What is the lingering frustration, the unexpressed grief, or the background anxiety that you've been ignoring all week that is perfectly setting you up to be completely flattened by a minor Tuesday inconvenience?
That's the real question.
Because once you identify the exact emotion that is squeezing your window, you can finally start doing the vital work to push it back open.